Welcome to the Guntersville Grassroots Podcast. Here we are in the middle of March. It was 80 on Sunday and snowing on Monday and headed back to 80. Trey is here. Trey, say hello.
Hey guys, what's up? I'm not there in the studio today, but I am here, so I did make an appearance some way, somehow.
Somewhat. We're going to get him in here before it's over with. But,
That's right.
We were just talking beforehand. I believe you had been up at the Classic this past
Mhm.
weekend, right?
Yep.
Was there a big crowd up there? Pretty good deal?
There was. I was pretty impressed. It seemed pretty busy all 3 days, and the weigh-in got more busy every day. Friday's always kind of iffy just because, everybody's working. So it always typically gets more busy the way it goes on. But Friday was packed, man. I thought it was a pretty good turnout. I thought the expo was good. If you download the app, unlike me, you realize there's more booths there than you thought. Because at first I was like, man, there's got to be more booths here. And then on the last day, I decided to download the app that you're supposed to download. And there was a whole nother building. So it's like a new day. So I got to go look at a bunch of new stuff. But no, I had to work at the Strike King and Lou's booth. And man, it was crowded. Like there was a lot of people there. I thought it was a great turnout. And I thought it was a really good classic.
Well, that's a good deal. That's good. And congratulations to young Dylan Nutt for winning. If you're one of those people that dogs a 22-year-old kid for living his dream and winning, following the same rules that everybody else did, you're part of the problem with fishing. End of story. That's all I got to say about that. So the kid kicked everybody's butt, and he's been kicking everybody's butt from one end of the Tennessee River to the other for about 3 years now. So him and his brother. So I don't know them personally.
He took a lot of my money.
Oh, yeah. He's took a lot of everybody's money. So I don't know them personally. I know one of his family members that's a friend of mine that lives over in Scottsboro. But so I don't know him personally, but I've heard nothing but good things about him. And it's pretty wild to see a 22-year-old kid from UNA kick everybody's butt. But that seems to be the new norm now, right?
I thought it was awesome, man. I don't know him personally. I've never been around him a whole lot aside of him taking my money when he comes over to Guntersville. But there for a while, I think it was last year, it was kind of me and Logan and him and his brother like back and forth winning them. And they were always just cool. I mean, down to earth dudes seem like two really good kids. I say kids are my age, but
3 years
to
younger
watch
than you,
him
Trey,
and
you're old now. So
yeah, that's true. But to watch him and his brother won the college classic the day before, so to see them both do that at the same time,
that's crazy.
That's special. That is just insane.
Yeah, those two guys have got it now. If I understand it right, Dylan, by winning the classic, automatically qualifies for the elites next year, right?
Yep. So as long as he accepts it, he will be an Elite Series rookie next year.
How about
at
that?
the first tournament
With a classic win.
Yep. That's going to be. He's going to look back at that in 5 or 10 years and realize how much that. And I know he already knows it, but man, winning that tournament right there is life changing. I wouldn't know because I didn't have insurance. I never even got to fish it, but that tournament is life changing.
I wasn't going to say that. You said it. Yeah,
I brought it on myself.
Yeah, you did. 2 times in a row, I believe. 2 times in a row.
I just did it for somebody in the comments. Did it? Our 2 listeners probably.
7. No, we're at 7 or 8. So
that's right. We're growing.
We're growing. You're number 5, and at least our listeners outnumber our years. So
that's right.
Can you believe we've been doing this 5 years?
This is crazy. I did not realize that. Now that you say that, I thought it had been like 2 years.
Well, I mean, you were a young little fellow working at Waterfront when we started.
That is crazy. I guess that makes sense now because I remember when we started trying to talk about doing it. Yeah, I was still working up there at Waterfront, and man, that is crazy.
Yeah. I went out and said, hey, if I'm an old guy going to do this, I need a young guy. I guess I'm going to trade you in for a newer model. You're not a young guy anymore. So I'm just kidding. You're still half my age, so you're still the young guy. So I've been on Guntersville just a little this weekend, got out a little bit, caught a few crappie that my wife likes to eat, and did a little bass fishing, and I have determined I'm still not very good at it. I swear I used to be, but apparently I just think too much about it now, and you catch a few, and I found one area that had a few fish in it. really had to start slowing down and dragging something to get them to bite much. And a buddy of mine came around the corner, was fishing a tournament with his dad, so I kind of got out of their way. And like, man, I didn't want to get in his way if he's trying to, fish in a tournament. I was just goofing off. And one
Yep.
day I went, and the wind was blowing 126 miles an hour, and I just did not like it at all. No, it just wasn't. It wasn't very good. The floating grass is very special everywhere you go. I saw
Mhm.
water as warm as 65 degrees in the back system pockets. I bet it's colder now, but Main Lake was anywhere from 58 to 61. It's kind of what I was seeing. But
Mhm.
you hadn't been out, have you?
I haven't. My boat's been in the shop and getting worked on, and so I have not got to get out. I wish I would have been before this cold front. Now, when it got cold, I'm good at staying at the house, but
I'm
I've
with you.
been wanting to get out, and I'm gonna try to get out this week, which I'm uh, doing the coverage for the Alabama Bass Trail at Lay Lake this weekend. So I will not be able to get out this weekend, probably, but hopefully next week I'll be able to get out there because when that water temp gets 58, 59, 60, that's some of my favorite times of the year to get out there and fish are spawning around, and then it ain't gonna be too long for the bluegill get on bed.
Yep.
It's one of my favorite times of the year, so I'm excited to get the boat back and get out there.
Wait, let's back that up a minute. Are you playing Luke Duncan down at the ABT this weekend?
They got the next worst thing to Luke Duncan and picked me to do the coverage down there at Lay Lake this Saturday. So
On
I
the
will
water?
be down there. Lord willing. Yeah, on the water. Yeah. So Lord willing, if my boat and truck make it down there, and I do, I should be on the water doing live coverage for the Alabama Bass Trail at Lake Saturday.
Well, I'm gonna be fishing in the Freedom Tournament, but I'm glad that's available on YouTube because but there may be a bloopers reel come out of that. Is it Darian? Is it Darian Craig does it too, right?
Yep. Yep. Him and Darian. I think they might have one more guy. I don't know. They might just have Luke and Darian now. I'm
I
not
can't
sure.
remember. I've watched it. That'll be interesting. I mean, Trey, the commentator, TV commentator. How did you get talked
I
into
know.
that?
I really don't know, to be honest with you. But I called Luke and I'm like, "Hey, bud, any pointers for your guy? First time doing live coverage." And he was like, "The hardest part is people are talking in your ear while you're trying to, you know, commentate. Like while you're trying to explain what people are doing, there's always people talking in your ear from the studio, like doing this." And I'm like, "Well, that's not good because I'm the type of guy that's like squirrel and I just lose my train of thought. So this ought to be very interesting." So if you want a good laugh, it might be a good laugh if you watch me on
You
live
can see
Saturday.
it on YouTube and Facebook and maybe the ABT website
Yeah,
even. I don't know. So if you're not fishing Saturday and you want to laugh at Trey, there's your chance. Be sure and wear your North Alabama mortgage jersey or something so you can get you a deal out of it. So I don't
that's
think
right.
they
That's
probably won't
right.
let you do that, uh, but anyway. Today we're going to bring in a guy that we had on 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember how long it was. It's a friend of mine. I met him through another friend of a friend, but he won the Big Bass Splash 2 or 3 years ago on a glide bait. Well, the Big Bass Splash is coming up, not this weekend, but next. And I thought, well, and let me go back a sec. Dawson Lenz is who we're talking about, and Dawson is a glide bait nut. Like the guy's like a nut. Now, we may talk about glide baits. We may talk about Coikes or however you say those things. Who knows? But he's caught a winning fish in the splash every year since then on some kind of big bait. So we're going to try to talk a little bit about big baits and see if he'll share a little info. So we're going to get Dawson on. I just thought it'd be fitting with him coming. He's going to be up here fishing and with the splash coming. And I'm like, let's talk about that a little bit. So we'll see if we can get him real quick.
Alrighty.
We've got Dawson Lenz back on here with us. And Dawson, what year did you win the splash, Dawson?
I believe that was 2023.
That's what I was thinking. It might have been 3. And I couldn't remember if it was 2 or 3 or how many years ago it was. So,
Yep. It was the one that was in June. That's all I remember.
oh, that one. Yeah.
Yep.
The one people
Yep.
grumbled about. But,
Yep.
so you won that thing on a glide bait of some kind. You could tell us what kind. I don't remember. But,
Yeah, it was a phony shad. It was a big shad profile.
but now here's the real interesting part. You've been back the last 2 years in March, and I know you won an hour or two, or won one for sure, and gotten checks in others. And of course, you're fishing with Brad and whoever else happens to be in there with y'all. But now, most all those fish came on a big bait too, didn't they? Of some kind.
Yeah. Yeah, everything I've weighed in the past few years. Yeah, everything I've weighed in the past few years has been on a big bait. I mean, that's about all I do. I mean, we normally fish out of Brad's boat, and I'll be honest that we always fish three deep. It's kind of a tradition now, and so we fish three to a boat, and 9 times out of 10, I'm on the back deck just fishing, and so yeah, it's all been on a big bait, just on the back deck of the boat, just fishing.
Just hanging out, slinging the
That's
not
it,
even scoping,
slinging it.
just slinging a bait.
Nope.
The,
Nope, no scope. No, we haven't weighed a fish scope in the past few years, and we won the boat. We won the next year. I won an hour on a 10-inch glide, and then the year last year, I guess it was. I think I don't know. We cut 3 or 4 checks. Those are all on big baits as well. So yeah, just no scope, just fishing, enjoying it.
that's pretty wild, pretty wild. So, you've been up here fishing a little bit this year. I think you did pretty good in the BFL not long ago. So, tell us what you've seen. Kind of what you think's happening out there. What you expect this weekend.
Yeah, yeah, man. So I hopped in the back-to-back BFL. I'm not fishing the choo-choo division this year. I've gotten so busy with work, but I hopped in it kind of last second. It was my birthday weekend, and it was a Saturday and Sunday deal. And I was like, heck, that'll be fun. Just go enjoy it and fish a couple days and get an excuse to get out of the house. But yeah, man, it was fun. The lake's fishing incredible. Me and Brad fished the New Year's tournament, and we kind of fished all around the lake. We kind of ran around probably a little too much that day, and we didn't do that well in the New Year's tournament. But we fished together about a month after that. He was practicing for the ABT, and Brad and I had probably 26, almost 27 pounds fishing down the lake while he was practicing for the ABT. Once again, that was fishing shallow, no scope
That
on
was the
any
day
of
I
those
saw you off the
fish.
boat ramp that morning.
Yeah, yeah, that was the day we saw you. Yeah,
Yeah, Brad
down at
sent me
Huntington.
totally wrong direction that day. He goes, "Man, they really been doing this," and I went looking for that, and they all caught on doing something totally opposite.
Do you know what's crazy about that, Pat? Is I literally, when we got off the water that day, I was like, "Man, you did Pat dirty." I was like, "You, you should be ashamed of yourself." I was like, "You did Pat dirty," because we caught all those fish in 3 feet of water. But
Yeah, he sent me a message.
um,
He says, "Man, I'm sorry. That's really what had been going on."
yeah, it was terrible. But yeah, so we had a really good day. I met up with him and just fished one day with him when he was practicing for the ABT, and they did real. I mean, I say they did real well. They did really good in the ABT weight wise, but I mean, those weights were so crazy. I
That
think
was
they had like
stupid.
22 and a half
Yeah.
and like barely got a check, I think, but they had a good bag. But yeah, so Brad fished the ABT and then I fished the BFL, and I can't remember what I got. I had almost 21 the first day, and then I had almost 25 the second day, and I tied with Cal Lane for fifth on Sunday. So yeah, man, it was a really fun weekend. The lake is fishing incredible. I don't think you can go wrong in the entire lake right now. I think, in my opinion, I think the lower end of the lake seems like the fish are just built a little different. I mean, we saw that with Hank Terry when he won the elites. I mean, those fish I think have just been chowing on bait all winter, and they're just built different. But that being said, I know of a lot of 20+ pound bags coming above Goose Pond too. I think the best grass in the lake is up there. So yeah, I don't think you can go wrong, but it's the lake's going to be on fire next week. I'm honestly so pumped to fish.
Did you catch any of those BFL fish on big baits, or did you have to just go fish like a normal guy?
So that's interesting you say that. So when Brad and I had that good bag, we were down the lake, and when we had that good bag, he wore me out on a trap. And I usually like throwing a chatterbait, and I'll be honest, I caught a couple 3 pounders, but he had that entire bag by himself on a trap. And I kind of have a theory on that, and it's a theory, but I think that when the elites were here and they had that hard freeze, um, I'm really close friends with Drew Cook, and I talked to him after that tournament, and he said he went into some areas down the lake, and he said he saw mid 30-degree water temperature. And I think what happened is I think those fish down the lake and all reds and honeycomb and browns and just pretty much below the bridge down there, I think they just have been gorging on small shad. I think there was a hard shad die off around when the elites were there, and they had the ice in the creeks and stuff. And I think those fish have been really, really gorging on small bait. So to answer your question, I threw the big baits in the BFLs. I had one fish I weighed the first day, shallow on a mag draft. But other than that, they all came on a trap. That trap, it honestly has been killing it for me. At least it did that weekend. I just think those fish are so keyed in, and they've been all spring just eating small bait.
Now, are you throwing red or shad colored stuff doing that?
Mixed it up, honestly, but the majority of my fish were on shad colored baits.
Yeah.
I tried both, but it's like I said, I just think they've been eating that small shad, and it seems like when they're eating it, they're really, really eating it.
The Trey, Trey was in the ABT that Brad was in, and you had somewhere right there around that too, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of had the same thought process. I had a lot of stuff on that lower end I wanted to run, and throw a trap and a chatterbait and stuff like that. I was also doing better, which makes sense to what you said. Is I was doing better on a 1/4 ounce rattle trap, which I don't know if I'm right. Obviously, I'm probably not, but I just think they like that smaller profile. They get to feeding on that really small bait, and it's not as loud and erratic or whatever. But I was catching them really good on 1/4 ounce rattle trap. Now, with my boat issues that I had in the ABT, I only had about 4 or 5 hours to fish once I got the boat fixed. So I didn't even get to fish really on that lower end on any of that stuff I wanted. I just knew I had to catch them quick if I wanted to do good. So I actually ran up the lake and scoped the whole time and ended up catching all mine off of stumps and structure, brush piles, stuff like that, out a little deeper. But that was my original game plan, was to go down below the bridge and throw a trap and a chatterbait and try to catch a quick, good bag, and then go look for a really big one. But I kind of had the same game plan as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I was throwing a 1/4 ounce as well. So yeah, I think that small bait, I think they've just been chowing on bait ever since we had that hard freeze when the elites were here. Those fish, I mean, they're literally blown up the fattest fish I've ever seen on that lake. It was crazy.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I caught a 17-inch fish in the ABT that weighed 402.
Holy cow!
That's unbelievable.
It was the fattest fish that I've ever seen in my entire. And I say, like, it was just built. I mean, from its head to its tail, it was just solid. And like when you picked it up, like sometimes you'll catch one that you think 6 pounds, and you pick it up and you're like, man, that fish don't weigh nothing. Like, this fish was just heavy, like through and through. It was just a giant fish. It was unbelievable. Like, I had to measure it because I couldn't believe it. I was like, there's just no way.
No, that's how it was for Brad and I. The same thing. The first fish he caught when we fished together, when it came up, I was like, man, that's got to be a 4.5 pounder. And when we put it in the boat, he weighed it and it was 6.5. I mean, it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. Like, it literally looked like a 4.5, 4 3/4, and it weighed 6.5 on the scale. They're just heavy fish, man.
Do you think those may be more Florida strain type fish than the northern strain? Because they've been letting a lot of them go for quite a few years now. That the biologists say don't survive, but who knows? But when you start seeing these animals that look different, I mean, the old northern largemouth is long and not necessarily built with shoulders like some of these scope fish, so to speak. I mean, you'd think they may be more Florida strain type deal, or just because these offshore fish are eating what they're eating?
It's hard to say. I mean, I'll be honest. The way they're built, it honestly seems like they're almost like a northern strain because their mouths aren't that big, and they're all belly. I mean, I think it could be a mix of both, but I just think my theory on it is, I think that hard cold and that shad die off, it helped those fish just weigh so much. I think they've literally been eating dead shad off the bottom all winter.
All right, just catch them falling as they go. Easy pick, like a buffet.
Yep, exactly.
So it seems like, and I say it seems like this because we'd be on the phone with you during the splash, and Theron that fishes with me would look over there and go, well, they just caught a big one on a dang glide bait. And so we'd get out a big bait, and all of a sudden, start catching fish. But it seems like somewhere there around the end of March, that trigger normally switches a little bit and or flips, and they do kind of get on a gizzard shad type pattern or something like that. I don't. You're the only one that's proven that to me, for the record. So, I mean,
I mean, yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm fishing all three days of the splash this year, and I won't throw anything but a big bait. I mean, I said it on the last time I was on the podcast with you. The best months of the year to catch giants on a glide is March and April, and then comes back again in October and November. And so I think too, this particular week, it's going to be, I mean, I think it's going to be better than it's ever been. I hope it is, because I know that there were some spawning fish. I saw some fish on bed in the BFL. I know there's some spawning fish. I know we had a little hard cold snap, but it's warming up again. I think there's going to be pre-spawners, spawners, and some, not many, but there's going to be some post-spawn fish. And man, those post-spawn fish, I mean, that year I won the splash, I mean, that fish, that was in June, and that was a fish on a brim bed. But I mean, those post-spawn fish really, really respond well to it. Pre-spawners do as well, but like when you have pre and post-spawn fish, I mean, it's going to go down. It's going to be really good.
That's that'll be, it'll be interesting to see, because I remember you caught that fish in not very deep water, right? Yeah, you know, I mean, it was for what, less than 6 foot in June.
Yeah, 5.5 feet. Yeah. It was first thing in the morning, but yeah, it was like 5.5 feet of water. Yeah.
So on the glide bait, though, have you played with the Berkeley's got one that's kind of a plastic bait, but the chop block, is that what it's called? And
that's it. Yep.
It's I got a buddy of mine that likes glides, and he had said that thing's pretty legit for, I mean, particularly for the price point on it. Have you played with one of them yet?
Yeah, I've got one tied on. It's literally sitting. It's sitting in the truck with me as we speak. I just took it down to the pond while I was at work, just to mess around with it. But yeah, man, I think that's going to be the next big thing, honestly. Mainly because, one, you can skip it, so it's good, you know, for up shallow, skipping under docks and stuff. Two, with scope, fish are seeing more glide baits than they ever have. I mean, they're seeing them in the wintertime, they're seeing them in the summertime, they're seeing them year round. Before scope, it kind of stinks for me because I've been throwing it for like 15 years, but before scope, nobody threw it. And so they responded really well to it. And now I think it's like the jerk bait. They used to chow a jerk bait, and they still do, but they're a little more weary of it. So you got to be a little more technical with it. And I think the glide bait, the next big thing is going to be that soft glide, mainly because it's supernatural. The hooks are tucked up under there. There's not much hardware. And also the sound. You're not getting the hooks rubbing up against the bait. It's not making racket. I mean, people don't think about it, but a glide bait actually makes quite a bit of noise, even a resin one without rattles or anything in it. Because when you're working it hard, it's clacking. The joint is knocking together and it's making noise. That's deal with that soft glide. It's silent. There's not a lot of hooks hanging off it. I think that's gonna be the next thing. I know some guys that are catching them on it and really not talking about it, but yeah, I think that's gonna be a deal. I've got one tied on right next to me.
So if you're coming to fish that in March on Guntersville, are you throwing that thing up there and working it back, chopping it just, you know, quarter handle turns as fast as you can, or are you fishing real slow as you can to keep it in the area? But how would you attack that?
Yeah. So pretty much my thing with the glide is, I think as baits get better, the Spro Chad Chad was the first one that was like a really good bait that was like you could get.
That didn't cost $300. Yeah.
Yeah. But what I've found though, and especially with big fish, is you can honestly overwork a bait. Like some of these baits are so balanced and so good, you can kind of work it too fast, in my opinion. I think what's super important with whether it be a hard bait or the soft one is kind of drawing them in. So kind of working it slow, methodically, kind of like a chop, chop, chop. And then when you kind of pause it and then hit it 2-3 times fast and kind of take it away from them. That I do every big fish I've caught has been on more of a slower, methodical retrieve, and then just a couple hard twitches in between. But like I said, you know, when you're covering water, I think people tend to fish it almost too fast sometimes. And it's like, that's when you get the followers where you're like constantly taking it away from them. They get it now, a 2.5, 3 pounder, they'll smash it because they're, if they want it, they're going to get it. But I think those big fish, you got to kind of draw them out of the grass, draw them off of a dock post. And then once they're behind the bait, then it's, your job to make them eat it, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I mean, you would 100% fish that bait in 30 foot of water, in spawning flats or edges of spawning flats, stuff like that.
100%. I'm going to throw it on everything. I mean, last year we caught one, I can't remember. It was high 6. And I caught it on a 10-inch glide, and it was on a spawning flat. It was probably in 5.5 to 6 feet of water. And yeah, they're just bombing it out there and working it back. But we caught quite a few fish on the bank too. They're going to be chomping it. But yeah, the majority of the stuff I'm going to be doing is with the really big baits, and I'm going to be probably a cast length off the bank probably.
Yeah, just because that's your deal, right? That's
Yep.
what you like. So, now, Trey, I know
Yep.
you started fishing the glide some in the last year or two. Yours has been more offshore, though, hasn't it?
Yeah, mine's been a little more offshore. I was about to say I had a question for him. See, me, and I'll start by saying this: I don't get much over about 6 or 7 inches because I'm too skinny, and if I throw a 10-inch one, then I backlash is dragging me in with it, and I don't even know if I got big enough equipment to throw one on. But
That's it.
but no, I started. I really got into it the last little bit. Like you said, I'm one of the guys that really didn't mess with it until scope. Now I love throwing soft body swim baits like a mag draft, or any kind of soft body swim bait like that, pre-spawn. But I've never really got into the hard glide baits, and I've really got into it the last year or so with scope, and like I use the hog farther from Strike King a lot now, but it's not too big of a bait, it's not too heavy or whatever. But for everybody listening, if you don't mind to share, I know what I've swapped to, and this is also a question for myself, but like, what line do you throw a big glide bait on? So I mean, and I know a lot of guys throw it on braid because they're scared to lose it. And I kind of want to now as well, because I did break off a $200 glide bait last year trying to boat flip one, and I about cried when I did it. So for everybody listening that might want to get into big bait fishing like that, what kind of setup do you throw it on? I mean, I know everybody knows you have to have a big rod and a big reel that can hold the weight of the bait, but what line do you use?
So that's a great question, because I remember when I was on the podcast last time with Pat, we talked about this exact same thing, and we actually, the day we won the boat, my partner Brad, he actually cast it off a couple chads. He was breaking them off, and we were trying to figure out what the deal was with that. And at the time, I thought it was a line twist thing, because when you throw that bait all day, there's just no way around it. It spirals in the air, especially if it catches wind, and it'll twist your line really bad. And I was trying to figure that out at the time, and I always thought we were casting off because of a line twist issue. I figured that out now. To answer your question, pretty much exclusively, I throw the big baits on 25-pound Tatsu. The reason why I do that is it's strong, very strong, but it's got the diameter of 20-pound most fluorocarbons, Red Label, Seagar. So it's smaller diameter, but it's super strong. And I throw it on a big rod, big reel, 300 size reel, 8-foot rod that's rated up to like 6 ounces for the big stuff. Now, going back though, for like that hog father, and the soft glides in particular that Pat was asking about, you don't need a swim bait setup for those. You can throw that on your Alabama rig rod. The soft baits you can throw on a jig rod. I throw mine on like a 7.4 heavy. It helps with skipping it around docks and stuff like that. But to answer your question, and there's a lot of opinions on this, but this is my opinion. I recommend putting some form of split ring or snap on the front of your bait. The reason why is what I've figured out over the past few years since we did good in that tournament is it's not necessarily the line twist that's weakening your line. It's the fact that bait is so heavy, even a smaller bait, a 2-ounce bait, a shad, you got to think when you cinch your knot down to the nose of that bait and you're casting it and you're loading that rod up and you're throwing it, and let's say you throw it 100 times, all that friction is rubbing back and forth on that knot to the direct nose of that bait. And so you're essentially weakening your fluorocarbon especially, because it's, fluorocarbon's strong, but it's brittle, and it can get brittle. So to answer your question, if you put a snap, I throw a snap. Some people throw split rings. I throw a snap, like a big decoy egg snap. Put that on the front of your baits, especially the bigger baits. The bigger they are, the more important it is, in my opinion, unless you want to retie every 20 minutes. Put a snap on it, 20 to 25-pound line, and you're in business.
So
Interesting.
that's pretty interesting to hear because I dealt with the same thing. I'm like, and Pat knows this, and I'm sure I probably brought it up because I love it so much with you last time we had you on. But like, I love to throw a Strike King 10XD. Like that is like if I can catch them on that, I've always said if there was ever a bass fishing tournament that is they're out deep, I'm gonna win it. Because I love throwing a Strike King 10XD. Like that is my deal. But it is also a very, very heavy bait. And it's really the more I threw it, you really have to have the right setup, which reminded me a lot of a glide bait. And now clearly you're more probably a better caster than I am. But I always struggled with a 10XD and the big glide baits when I got into them. I would backlash, and fluorocarbon has a bad tendency to kink really bad.
Yep.
So when you backlash and it gets a kink in it, you know, the average guy like myself that don't really pay attention, it's just like, whatever, just get it out. Well, I noticed there's put so much weight and so much tension on the whole entire spool and the rod that's how I felt like I started breaking off a bunch, casting 10XDs as well. So I started throwing the 25 pound mono on all of mine just because it didn't kink as bad.
Yeah.
And that's the way that I went. So I was really curious to see what you thought about that.
I kind of like the big old P line.
Yep, P line. Yeah, you cannot break P line.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rope.
Mono. A lot of the old school swim bait guys really like mono. I don't mind mono. I've just gotten so used to the setup I'm throwing. I just have confidence in it. The thing with the mono is I would just up the kind of the power of your rod just a half a step.
Sure.
because people don't realize, if you have a big bait out there at the end of a cast, let's say, and then you're using 1/0, 2/0 treble hooks on some of the big stuff, you have to penetrate it a lot thicker hook than people realize, and at the end of the cast you just need to obviously take up slack, and mono it stretches another option. So yes, 100% 25 pound mono would 100% work. I would just use a little bit stiffer rod.
Just because of the stretch?
Sure. Yep, just because of the stretch. Yeah, because just penetrating those hooks. A lot of times people don't realize that, like, you get bit at the end of the cast and you pull into it, and like you'll lose a glide bait fish in like the first 3 handle turns. And I think it's because you really never penetrated those hooks.
Those glides have got big hooks on them. Yeah, I mean,
exactly. Yeah. Yep. I've messed around with everything under the sun as far as hooks go, and I do think there is a balance. Like Ryugi makes a really good hook. It's called a brutal, and it's a very, very sharp, but it's not as heavy a gauge as a lot of the super heavy glide bait hooks are. I think you get better penetration with that hook.
Interesting.
For sure.
On the line thing,
relate it to a 10XD.
Yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead, Pat.
No, on the line thing, one of y'all said something. I think it was Trey said something about braid. I watched a guy throw a bait halfway across the lake on braid, in Alabama, and because if it catches and snaps, that braid just breaks, and I've been kind of scared of throwing like even a bull shad or something. Those $60 baits are expensive to me. I've been a little hesitant of those on braid unless I just had to because of the grass. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally get that.
I mean, if you put 25, 20, even 20, but if you put 25 pound line on something, there's not many places you're going to fish when those that you can't control what you need to control, right? Or fish.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. And I, like I said, I mean, I've just kind of settled out on that 25 pound Tatsu. It's high dollar stuff, but I mean, when you're throwing a 150, 200. I mean, some of the stuff I'm throwing now, I don't even want to talk about how much I spent on it.
No, we don't talk about that.
My wife might listen to this later.
We don't count fishing rods.
Credit card limit.
Yeah, we don't count fishing rods. It doesn't, that we don't. Those things don't come up for discussion. So, but so let's change gears for a minute. You're an experimental guy when it comes to baits. What's your opinion on this Coike dice thing going on now?
It's the deal. I hate to say, I'll be honest. I'm not a huge scoper. I'll do it, and I know it's obviously a huge deal on the scope. I've got some buddies in Japan, and I hate to say it, I've had one of those baits in my garage for like over a year now. I never
Still in the box.
I never did anything. Yeah, and now I've got like a dozen of them. I'm thinking maybe I'll just put them on eBay at this point, because like I might as well get some money out of them if I'm not going to throw it. But no, it's a crazy deal, man. And there's so many weird ways guys are rigging it, and I've seen a dozen different ways guys are rigging it. But I think it's two things. I've actually got a friend that lives in Japan, and from what I understand, when that bait came out, it was never a plankton thing or a phytoplankton and all that. When that bait came out, it was a topwater bait in Japan, and they weren't scoping with it. They were throwing it in creeks and streams and stuff. And what they were doing is they were floating it on the surface weightless, and they were twitching it really fast. And the designer said it was supposed to imitate was like a small ball of fry that were all kind of like running together, almost like you'd see during a shad spawn, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So each one of those legs are supposed to represent a bait fish, is what he wanted to do out of it. But I just think, man, I don't think the bass think about that. I think
they
guys
just eat it. Yeah.
They're sinking it down on scope, and they're working it over brush and isolated stumps. And I just think that it's like a floating worm. What does a floating worm look like? I just think they're curious and they come up and eat it.
Yeah, they just react. Do you think you can catch one on it in the grass? 'Cause I tried a little bit this weekend on one of them. First time I'd fished one, and I had 2 bites. Did not catch it. But I also don't know how to fish it. I mean, I was kind of dinger, kind of fishing it like a wacky, kind of fishing it like a jerk bait, a little bit of both, So
Yeah, it seems like it seems like, because I know some guys caught him on it in the DFL I fished. One of the guys that I stayed with is co-angler, and he fished with a pretty well-known guy out there, and he caught him on it
in the grass.
Yeah,
like fishing in the grass.
No.
Scoping.
He was scoping it deep.
Yeah.
But you fish it like a jerk bait.
Yeah.
It's pretty much like kind of like the minnow is, but you're more aggressive and you're just trying to take it away from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's so funny to me about live scope nowadays is I swear they will eat anything if they think it's going to get away from them. Once you get their attention, if they think it's going to get away, they don't. And everybody's like, what do you think that imitates? I'm like, something trying to get away. They don't know. I just think they're just like, man, I'm not going to let you get away. I'm going to get you if I want you.
100%. 100%. It's like the spoon. I live scope with a spoon on Lanier. And they absolutely just, as long as you're, I don't even jerk it. I just reel it. And I just take it away from them. And it's like, if they think it's running away, they're going to smash it.
That's interesting.
Yep.
That's interesting. So you don't know yet if I'm going to play with it in the grass a little bit more. I think if they'll bite it on scope, I think you can get them to bite it in the grass too. Yeah, and the whole topwater thing's interesting. I mean, you getting around these bedding fish now. That could be a topwater Coike or whatever you want to call it. Throw it out there and twitch it around over a bed and see what happens. So.
Oh, I think it'll get eaten. I think it'll get eaten. I'm just, like I said, I'm just trying to decide if I'm going to put mine on eBay tonight or bring them next week.
Yeah.
I'll probably buy one from you if you bring it.
I've got like a dozen. I'll save you one, Trey. I got every color they make.
I had one guy tell me, he said he didn't think color mattered. He said, and it's exactly what you just said. He said, when you get their attention with it, you play keep away. When you get them, when you start playing keep away, they're going to eat it. It's pretty interesting to me. And again, I'm not much of a scoper either, but
I think with that thing too, I think it's like the Alabama rig is when the Alabama rig came out. Like when guys first started throwing that, they were putting chartreuse grubs on it, and you could put whatever you wanted on it, and they'd take the rod out of your hands. And I think that bait's that way now too. If you can get your hands on one, it doesn't matter if it's pink chartreuse or green pumpkin. I think they're going to bite it. But I think you give it a year, I think they're going to get really particular on the color in about a year.
I would probably so. Waterfront had a pile of them the other day for what it's worth. So, but they're $24 a piece or something. And then they had some other brand, a little smaller, some other brand that's maybe $9 or $10. But I've decided when the Alabama rig came out, I kind of fought it. And we got our butt handed to it. You show up at a tournament. When the Alabama rig first came up, we showed up at a tournament with like 27 pounds and didn't even get a pat on the back. And I said, got to play the game now. And multiple 35. I mean, it was stupid. And I fought it. I'm not going to fight this one. I'm going to throw that stupid thing and figure out how to catch a fish on it.
I know you and Theron, I don't know if you've done it in years past, but I know you and Theron have caught them pretty good shallow on the Alabama rig. Are y'all going to try that next week?
they had been on it pretty good. We have had pretty good success with that. As the water temp warms, that bite kind of slows down for us.
Yeah.
Historically, unless you just get one of those days, that's kind of, post frontal, cold front. I mean, you can rest assured we'll throw one some, but, he's semi-retired now, so he's been fishing a lot. I'm counting on him to keep me in track of what's going on now instead of me. So it's nice to have a guy that's going fishing 3 days a week to say, "Hey, man, what do we need to do today?" So I don't know. I mean but I saw 65-degree water Saturday.
Oh yeah.
And Main Lake stuff, 60-ish. I mean, and of course it snowed Monday, so and crazy, but.
Yeah, I caught a couple fish on a frog in the BFL. I think a frog's going to play a factor for anybody just wanting to have fun. I think a frog's going to catch some nice fish next week too. So
Trey said he caught some in the ABT. You caught some in the ABT on it, didn't you, Trey?
I did. Yeah, I weighed in. I think I weighed in too. It happened so fast. My buddy, he gets the award for the best co-angler because after we went frogging, we went straight scoping, and you can't really scope with two people. And man, all he did all day was tie me new leaders, tie me on new jig heads, tie me on new minnows. Like all I had to do was be like, "Oh, what about? I wonder if they bought a smaller minnow." And he'd be like, "Where are they at? Give me a rod." And he would just tie it on or whatever. But yeah, we went right off the bat, and man, I think we ended up weighing in 2 or 3 maybe, for sure 2. Because I know I had a 430 and a 420 on a frog. And then I caught the rest scoping. But yeah, we weighed in several on a frog, and I bet we had 20, probably 25 blow-ups on it.
Was that a mid-lake deal for you, Trey?
It was a little bit of everywhere. I had one place down the lake, and I don't know, it was set up in the perfect place because all the fish love to get in this area pre-spawn. It's a very popular area, but it was just kind of set up perfect for it. And when my motor broke down and we got it fixed, that was the closest place that I could think in my mind to go to. And so I went straight to it. And then after that, man, realistically, I didn't think that I could catch over 20 pounds frogging, and I knew we needed a bigger bag. So once I got to I think we went frogging, and I had 2 big ones, or I had one, I caught one up the lake, but then we had 18, 19 pounds. And I was like, all right, we better go scope and count our blessings on that quick 18, 19 pounds on a frog.
Yeah, no, was that like a primrose deal, or was that like a matted up eelgrass kind of chop mat type deal for y'all?
Yeah, more of the matted stuff. And
same thing.
It gets to the float stuff. You can catch them out of that stuff as well, but it really seemed like the matted stuff was better for us. And I think that's just because it was so cold, a week before, and then it got so hot. I think they were just trying to find the biggest. I don't know. A lot of times when it gets cold, they get the thickest part of the mat or thickest piece of grass around. And I think that had a lot to do with it, because it definitely seemed to be the thickest part is where they were at.
You were throwing an old school frog,
same for me.
Not a ribbit, like an old school frog type deal.
Yeah, old school
frog.
Braid. Yep.
Yeah. Same
with me. Yep, same with me. Hollow body frog on the mats.
Interesting. Yep. Well, we better start wrapping it up. But before I let you go, what size? Let me say this. There was an 11-something caught this past Saturday on Guntersville, which is the biggest fish I've heard of in quite a while on Guntersville. But
oh wow,
yeah, on a chatterbait, shocker. But what's it going to take to win the Splash?
Man, the way it's fishing right now, oh gosh, I think a mid to high 9. That's what if I had to put $100 on it, that's what I'm going to say, a mid to high 9.
Yeah, that's kind of my guess too. Trey, what do you think?
Man, it's really hard to tell. Just with the weather changing and the little cold front that we got. I mean, but here's the deal: they allow scope all 3 days for the whole time. There's going to be a bunch of them young guns in there scoping the whole time. And there's going to be guys like yourself throwing a big glide bait. I mean, everybody is there looking for the biggest bass in the lake. You're not trying to catch the 5 biggest. You're not looking for an average. I would say over 9 for sure. I would say somewhere in the 9.5. I think my for me, it would surprise me if somebody weighed one over 10. For whatever reason, Guntersville just doesn't seem to pump those out all the time. Now, it
Yep,
can
I agree
happen
with that.
easily. It can happen easily for sure. But I think mid to high 9 will probably take it home, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And when I won it with an 823, if I weighed an 820, now I'd be tickled to death to weigh another 823. But if I weighed an 823 this weekend, I would not feel safe at all.
It's March. Yeah, I mean it's March, not June. So yeah,
Yep.
And like we were talking about earlier, they're about as big as they're going to get right now until it gets on to, I don't know, September, October. So I mean, they're weighing their heaviest right now. If it was June, I would tell you at 8. But yeah, being right now, I definitely feel safe to say something in the 9 range.
Yeah, I agree.
100%.
Well, Dawson, there's plenty of floating grass here. You're gonna probably get frustrated with your glide baits and that, but somehow or another, you make it work. You make it work. So, man. I can't thank you enough for jumping on here short notice with us. Give me a buzz when you get in town on Friday. We'll touch base, or next Friday during the splash. We'll share notes.
Yeah, we'll definitely share notes. I'll holler at y'all, and man, I look forward to it. I think this year's gonna be one of the best catching years, at least since I've been fishing it. There's gonna be a ton of fish caught.
Probably so. Yeah, if the weather, you're guaranteed one crappy day of weather out of those 3 at least. But
every time.
I don't think we're gonna have any more. I mean, I think we just had dogwood winters. What we had here is what the old timers would say. That was a pretty extreme one because it literally was 80 degrees on Sunday, and then there was an inch of snow on my truck on Monday at 2:00 in the afternoon. So.
It's wild.
It was gone in an hour and a half, but it still snowed, So,
yeah, I was working in sleet the other day, so I know what you mean.
Yeah, that's in Georgia. But well, man, I thank you. I appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next week.
Absolutely, man. We'll see y'all.
See you, buddy. As always, Dawson dropped some good info there. He's just a good one to have on, man. I just really like the stuff he has to say. So.
He really is. He really is. I enjoyed that. I was learning myself, man. I'm addicted to tinkering around with baits and messing with new baits and things like that. And he seems like he's the same way. I mean, I wish my credit card limit was high enough to go buy me about 4 of them big baits, but I'm gonna have to wait a couple of years, close a few more loans before I'm able to buy one of them big baits.
Yeah, no doubt.
No, it's always cool to see somebody that pretty much lives or dies by it. Like, you can tell he loves it, and that's what he likes to do, and it's cool. And that's we talk about it all the time, and I know people probably get tired of hearing us talk about it, but that's what's so cool to me about Lake Guntersville is you can have a guy like him that says, you know what, I love to throw big baits, and that's what I'm going to go do. And you can literally go do it. And you can have a guy that says he's going to do whatever. Like, that just goes to show you how good Guntersville is, and it's got the caliber of fish in it that eat 10-inch glide baits.
Well, particularly for something like the Big Bass Splash. I mean, it's set up for the amateur angler. I mean, and you're not going out there trying to catch 5 that weigh 25 pounds. I mean, it's great if you do, but you're going out there. I mean, people are trying to get checks with those 5 to 6 pounders, but he's going out there to catch a 6 to 10. And he probably will. His history's on his side for the last few years. He's done pretty well, and he's been fishing here a fair amount more this year. So. I'm glad we're buddies because maybe he'll call me and say, hey, you need to throw this over here. Of course, I don't have $200 glide baits. I've got a bull shad, a chop block, and a couple of those Chad shads, and that's the extent of it. And I may own more glide baits than I've caught fish on glide baits, but I do want to know how to do it, which is the reason I keep bringing him on. So,
for sure.
But anyway, well, Trey, you're headed to the ABT the weekend of the Splash. And then a Toyota series, both at Pickwick, right?
Yep, both of them are at Pickwick. We were joking around before we started recording, and I said, I got the ABT Saturday, and technically that's the first day of practice for the Toyota. So I won't even get to come home. I'm just going to stay up there in Florence and fish the ABT Saturday, and then go straight into the practice for the Toyota series. So I was joking with you, saying, it could either be 2 really good ones or a long 2 weeks.
A really long 2 weeks of fishing. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. I'm curious to see. I know the water level's a little lower right now up there, which I I don't really understand why we do this time of the year, but it is low for whatever reason. So the fish that are trying to spawn, there's not a lot of water for them to go, do their deal in. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be pretty tough, but which doesn't make me excited to spend 2 weeks out there when it's Guntersville's on fire and that place is tough. But it is what it is. So
Man, you've got a pretty good history in places when it's tough, though. Just putting your nose down and fishing.
I do for whatever reason. I don't know. I think it's because I'm not great at bass fishing. So when everybody's catching like 38 pounds, I'm just like mediocre. Like I'm just not going to do that. I'm not the guy that's going to blow a tournament out of the water. But when it gets really tough and, one bite takes you a long ways, I've always seemed to do a little bit better. And I think it's just because I'm a less average kind of fisherman. But,
Lower
you got to take your
expectations.
wins when you yeah, for sure. So maybe this week's my week. You just never know.
You never know. You never know. Well, buddy, I appreciate you coming on with us. Good luck over there. Close some loans, man.
Absolutely. You do my best. Maybe we can get fishing here soon and enjoy/hate some of that floating grass.
Hey, you get done with those. We're going. You get done with those
That's
2 weeks
right.
there. We're going. So everybody else, Freedom Marines this weekend. It's full. Big Bass Splash is the next weekend. If you like to fish, pay the money and go fishing for 3 days. You never know if you're gonna get lucky and catch that fish. And it probably won't be a one on a glide bait. It'll probably be one on a wacky rig. So, or something like that, or a rattle trap, or a red rattle trap. It's still March. So until next time, enjoy the floating grass.